Podcast episode 123. In this episode, I want to talk about Kendo Tour 2018, Relearning Kata. Kendo Podcast by Hiro Mafuji from kendoguide.com. Thank you for listening. This podcast is about Japanese martial arts Kendo for Kendo lovers and supported by Kendo enthusiasts through patreon.com. Thank you for your support, guys. Please visit kendoguide.com for more Kendo information and how to support kendoguide.com. Welcome to Kendo Podcast episode 123. Okay, I just got back from Japan Kendo tour with my students last Wednesday, and I think I'm over jet lag now. And that was hot and humid. I knew Japan was having this heat wave. What do you call it? Like abnormally hot days. And that was hot. And actually, when we went to Kyoto to get some Kendo equipment, like shinai and stuff, that was 40 degrees Celsius. I don't know what's in Fahrenheit. What's 40 degrees in Fahrenheit? No, it didn't give me. Hey Siri, what's 40 degrees Celsius? Hey Siri, what's 40 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit? 104 Fahrenheit. It took a long time. Probably I should cut this part. But anyway, so that was very hot. And of course, that was the temperature. So when you walk on the street, that was very even. The feeling is a lot hotter than that. So, if you go to Japan in summer, be careful. It's hot usually. Usually, Japanese summer is hot and humid, but this year that was really hot. So that was like I think they almost called this what do you call natural disaster like earthquake, same level as that. So a lot of people died, unfortunately, to this heat. A lot of people went to the hospital, hospitalized because of the heat strokes. As a matter of fact, that some of my students, I think that was heat stroke. They didn't feel good. They felt sick, and but I grew up in Japan, but that was like I never experienced it, especially at the dojo. That was my home dojo. I grew up there. I learned kendo there, Shubukan in Itami. The heat, it wasn't like I experienced when I was a child. Like heat was following you, like you were like in a heat bubble. So wherever you go, it comes with you. That was like, wow. So be careful, if you go to Japan, it's not like, oh, I can handle it. Maybe you can, but oh man, you must have to have this idea of what heat stroke would be and how hot it is. Just a killer. And so because of that, we had to cancel some training. The first thing we were aiming at was the purpose of this trip is to learn Kendo, of course. But we wanted to come back to the States in one piece. So I thought, we had a jet lag, just killing heat and humidity, and they had to walk a lot. Every single thing is they never experienced before. I experienced the heat, but not that much. But at least I know how hot and humid it was in Japan, and then I knew we had to walk a lot. So I have preparation, my mental preparation, but I know I told them to do, I told them everything. But if you don't never experienced, you just don't have the idea. You can't imagine, but you don't know for real, right? So I think their body couldn't handle all of that at once. So after one person actually got, we think he had a heat stroke. We took a rest about 1.5 days because I knew everyone was tired, so I just called off the some 1.5 days. So we couldn't do what we planned, but I think that was right thing to do because we wanted to come home all together. I didn't want to send anyone to hospital. So I think we did the right thing. But so we couldn't do as much training we planned. But I can share a lot of things because we learned a lot again. Now, I have to talk about kata because that's what we did. When I was in Japan, when we were in Japan, we were Miyazaki Sensei showed my sensei Miyazaki Sensei showed kata to all of us, and kata is very important. We know kata is important, right? But yet, not many people focus on learning kata as much as they do kendo with shinai. But if you think about, if you're late starters, if you started kendo, or if you think about starting kendo, of course, hitting each other with a bamboo sword is fun. But kata teaches us concept of kendo, and it will teach you what you should be doing, like the basic wise. Nice some big strike. Sorry, my shoulder still hurts, so I need to rest. So I cannot bring my my hands above my head too much. But you have to have a good basics to do kata, all the body movements. We can learn a lot from kata, but once you learn forms, you just stop learning. A lot of people just stop. Oh, I know what to do in kata. Forms. How you move, but you don't really study what you need to study in kata. So that's the important part a lot of us miss in kata. So once you memorize what you need to do in kata, what you have to do is dig it up, dig deeper. So you actually understand what's going on. It's very hard to know through kendo, because kendo you're so busy to do one thing, right? Hit your opponent. That is not what you have to do. That's not a goal. You get hit is a goal, not hitting is a goal. The reason is by getting hit, you learn your weaknesses. That's what we want to do. To hit, you hit other people, and then what you're doing is actually okay, correct. But maybe it should be okay. Maybe that you can hit your opponent by accident, or maybe you planned, maybe you set up a trap and then it worked perfectly. Maybe that way, maybe by accident. So that's how you figure out. But losing is one thing. Getting hit is one thing. You get hit either by accident, or either you your opponent's trap, you get hit. That's your weakness anyway. So you can learn by getting hit. Okay, so that is what we should be focusing on. Anyway, so we are so busy to do that in Kendo with Shinai. The kata is very, very effective to reconstruct, rebuild your Kendo, your forms, theory. You think about theories, principles. So in kata, you can learn a lot. So, well, I would like to, instead of going on each kata, I would like to share. I have listed 7 things here to share with you. Through entire kata, we should learn these. Okay? Now, we have to learn how to assume proper kamae. In kata, we have kamae, 5 kamaes: Jodan, Chudan, Gedan, and Hasso, and Wakigamae, Migi Wakigamae. Right? Now, Jodan has 2 types, Migi Jodan and Hidari Jodan. So basically 6. Jodan has 2. Hidari Jodan, Migi Jodan, Chudan, Gedan, Hasso, Wakigamae, right? That's 6. And well, anyway, so we have Jodan, we have Gedan, we have Chudan, Hasso, Wakigamae. So you have to assume proper kamae. Now, since Kenjutsu school, we had a lot of Kenjutsu schools. Like there were a lot of Kenjutsu schools. I don't exactly know how many of them are out there in this modern days, but a lot. So Jodan, if you say one Jodan, I'm sure there are various Jordans. Different Jordans for different purposes too. So when we talk about Kendo Kata, and of course, back in old days, Kendo Kata was made by a lot of different senseis, right? They got together, talk about it, and then a lot of sensei used to practice classical styles, which is called what do you call it? Kenjutsu. Okay, Hokushin Itto-ryu or whatever, Shinkage-ryu. There's a lot of schools. So they wanted to include their styles in the Kendo forms, Kendo Kata. Okay, so and that as well, and of course by depends on the teachers you learn from. What they teach you in the Kendo Kata can be different. So based on this style, you should be doing this. So Kendo Kata, you have to interpret Kendo Kata. Unfortunately, Kendo Kata instruction book doesn't really say why you're taking Jodan, how you take Jodan. You just say take Hidari Jodan, but it doesn't really say how, what type of Hidari Jodan. So all we can do is like standard Jodan. So standard Chudan. And Chudan has various Chudan as well. Higher, to the right, to the left, just where you point, the height of sword depends on the height of sword. They have different names. So they decided to call it Chudan anyway. And if you read the old instruction book for kata, it says Seigan. So what's Seigan? Seigan has many different types. So they call it, okay, let's call it Chudan. Let's not call it Seigan, because Seigan can be this and Seigan can be that. It's different kanji Seigan, the same pronunciation but different kanji. They have different kanji for different types of chudan. So it's confusing, right? So let's do this with that, right? So Kendo Kata is pretty much now it's pretty much standardized, and still depends on the how your teacher was taught by his teacher. Maybe you do kata differently from how I do it because of those all senses interpretation. Their background influence kendo kata, and that's how they teach uh, kendo kata to their students. So their students interpret that to their own kata, right? So kendo kata can be different. The not principles, the how you take hidari jodan, for example. Some take hidari jodan maybe a little bit lower, kensaki with the kensaki a little bit lower. But we need to have kind of one standard jodan. So now we decided to do this or that. So we follow All Japan Kendo Federation Kendo Kata, right? That's why we have to really study All Japan Kendo Federation Kendo Kata instructions book. Based on that, you have to start interpreting what it means, how we should be doing. Of course, with your help from your teacher. Okay, so for example, I don't know how much my kata is different from yours. Like All Japan Kendo Federation, always, not always, sometimes changes how you should be taking hustle, for example. When I was a kid, it was like straight to your mouth. But now, no. Hang on a minute. It was like this first when I was a kid, and then it became like that. So when I was a kid, 30 years ago, you have to go up, big up to Jordan, and come down to hustle. From Hidari Jordan to hustle, and then it became like small movement. It's straight into hustle from Chudan to hustle. But now again from big, as you take Hidari Jordan and go back. I think that was how they go back and forth. But so you need to update a little if you have to, when you have to follow All Japan Kendo Federation's Kendo Kata. So some things sometimes they change a little bit, but basically the outline is the same. So as long as you know how to take hustle, as long as you know how to assume proper kamae, it shouldn't be that difficult to adjust those changes. For example, if you know wakigamae, you have to hide your sword behind you. And to hide your sword, what you have to do, you got to think about that, hide your sword. And then if you want to keep your sword behind you, how you should be walking. If you walk like this, like shoulders moving, you will show your sword. So keep your left shoulder towards your opponent and do not move your left shoulder. That way you can keep your sword behind you. So you gotta think really hard to accomplish proper kamae. Okay, so that's another thing you have to assume. But like chudan as well, because it's not shinai kendo, it's bokuto. It's supposed to be katana. You cannot do kamae like shinai because it won't work. The kata won't work properly if you if you take chudan, like Shinai Kendo, very low chudan. So for that kind of thing. But anyway, I'm going to talk about that in number 7, the last one. So move on to the next one. Learn your distance. You can learn your distance in kata very well because you are not having a man on. You can see everything clearly. You're not like psyched up because you want to strike. You cannot strike your opponent with a bokto. You're gonna kill him, or you're gonna hurt really badly your opponent. So you don't want to strike them, right? But you have to stop. When you stop, you know where you're hitting. If are you short or are you too close, you have to adjust your distance, right? Even though this distance adjustment is the uchitachi's job. You need, even if you're shitachi, you need to know your distance. Of course, uchitachi too. So, 1本目, we both are Jordan, uchitachi is taking Jordan, right? And 1, 2, 3. Since you have no sword in front of you, you have to know your distance. So first, uchitachi don't move, and uchitachi take a step forward and strike. Okay, do you reach your opponent? That's very important part. If you just strike without reaching your opponent, what's the point of striking? So you really have to start think about what you should be doing. You're trying to cut your opponent from here, okay, including sword, here to the belly button. Okay, so that is what you're doing in kata number 1, if you're uchitachi. If you don't know that, you don't care if you reach or not, right? So I want you to care. You should care the distance so you can learn your own distance. Okay, so that's another thing you can learn. Now, you can learn how to use katana through bokuto. Of course, we don't have saya, scabbard. We don't have saya, so we don't do. We cannot learn how to draw out your sword, how you put back your sword into saya. But still, you wanna. It's bokuto is an imitation of a real sword. So basically, you cannot strike like kendo. Like if your kendo is like you can't hit a target like that, but you should. I'm sure you can still cut people like this, cut like this. But if you want to cut through, your left hand shouldn't be up like that because your katana cannot go down if your left hand is too high. It should be low, right? So you really can learn how to use your sword through kata, and how to use shinogi. For example, kote suriyage, kote, men suriyage, men. What else? And also how to strike do. You have a blade, so you have to know the angle of the blade. So it's very important to focus, pay attention to the angle of your sword as well. So kata is good for that. So you can learn hasoji when you go strike do. It doesn't matter, right? This is a common thing. I was teaching this 11 years old kid. What they do in kendo is they do do strike, and they lower your shinai down, right, and then pull out. So it's easier to pull out. Okay, but that's not how you should strike do or how you cut do in kata, right? So he was in kata number 7, 1, 2. He was going. He was striking do like kendo with shinai. So I had to tell him, you cannot cut through like that. So if you do Kata, you know how you should be striking, following the principle of the katana. So I think this makes people aware of, oh, shinai is not a stick. Shinai should be a katana. So this is how I should be striking. I still think it's a very important part of learning kata. And also learning how to breathe. Now, a lot of people say different things, so you have to try it. It's not a one way, one right way, I think. Something works for you. It's like, a lot of things, like just breathing itself has different schools. They do this, one school do this, one school do this, one school do that. So we cannot say what is right, but at least you should know that breathing you should try to do kata with one breath. Okay, not whole 10, of course. Each one kata should be done one breath. Now, so when you assume, breathe in, hold your breath, and 1, 2, 3, you go forward and execute your technique, and you breathe out. Yeah, tall, right? And then you can quietly breathe without your opponent, your partner, knowing that you're breathing very quietly. All right, so they cannot hear. And then when you step backwards, hold your breath again. Okay, so that's one way to do it. All right, if you cannot do it one breath. If you can go for one, you do it one breath, that's fine. But sometimes you're gonna have to breathe, right? So when you breathe, do it quietly. When you go backwards, when you hold your breath. When you're in critical distance, which is isoku itonoma, you don't want to breathe, because when you breathe in, you can't move. That is the moment you're vulnerable. So you have to hold your breath. That's why a lot of high grade holders don't really, once they get close, they don't say anything, because they go, when they breathe in, they want to get you. So that's why they're quieter than maybe low grade holders. Now, learn the ki. A lot of people go, yeah, tall, just saying it. If you want to be better, you gotta use abs. Hara, lower abs. Yeah. So you have to breathe out the whole ki. Go, yeah. Use your abs. So you gotta mean it. If you just go, yeah, tall, it's all up here. You have to have, yeah, tall, ki, right? It's ki. Like, man, through your abs. Okay, so that is another thing is related to breathing. Okay, so it's related to kendo too. You have to have strong ki to strike man. Not like man, right? Man, same thing. Yeah. Oh. So you can train your abs by doing that. And you can learn how to move properly. You can easily do kata with only hands. You have to move your body forward, deliver your body from the hip forward, and you gotta cut, right? So like we say kendo, we don't strike with hands or arms, we strike with legs. We don't strike with legs, we strike with lower body, lower back, koshi. So we can learn that, right? How to execute effective strike in kata that will connect. Just it's the same way we deliver our body in kendo. Of course, in kata we don't stomp because we don't jump, but basic idea of moving back and forth is the same thing. So we can learn that, right? So if you basically cutting part is easy. You just up and down, and as long as your body moves forward correctly, you swing down. Your target is right there. Okay, so the hitting part is the easier part. Moving is a difficult part. Coordination is a difficult part. So we have to work on it, and then working together. That's I think it's how to use katana too. That's related. Working together. So Uchitachi and Shitachi are enemies, but they are teacher and student, right? Students are supposed to learn techniques. When you learn techniques, the important thing is teacher needs to execute strikes so student side can execute proper technique. If you're Uchitachi, just execute your strikes improperly, like I'll do a strike man, okay, man, just right man, like that. How can Uchitachi execute proper technique if you don't do it right? If you don't strike man, he doesn't have to move. He or she doesn't have to move. He doesn't have to execute man nuki man. No, execute man. Nukiwaza is the important part of the statue, right? Man nuki and body has to go backwards, entire body goes backwards, and entire body goes forward properly. So that is the part they statue has to learn. But which statue doesn't do the technique right, how can he learn or she learn proper technique? Kote nuki, kote nuki kote as well. How can you, if you don't strike kote properly, how doesn't need to do kote nuki kote because you're not striking it right. So every single techniques has to be executed by Uchitachi correctly, so Shitachi can execute execute to learn techniques properly. So you have to work together, right? And then how to use katana too. Now I talked about you cannot assume children like shinai kendo in kata, because if you do that, all right, if you're too low, for example, kata number 3, tsuki, nayashi, okay, nayashi tsuki, irezuki ni nayasu. He says irezuki ni nayasu. I think it was, yeah, irezuki ni nayasu. And you can't really execute nayashi technique properly if your kensaki is too low. So because a lot of things, the katana technique has to be done properly by the way that we use katana. Shinai techniques can be done properly. I think that's shinai too nowadays, because shinai, they don't bring this kensaki up. They use very small techniques. Suriyage waza doesn't really work anymore. So a lot of things don't work properly if you don't strike properly. Because kendo is changing, so I don't know what's proper means anymore. But according to the principle of the katana, kensaki should be high and then strike, boom, boom. That's how it works. So at least in kata, you have to keep the kensaki a little higher, so Shitachi can execute technique properly. So you should remember that, and a lot of things, kodachi as well. Last 3 techniques with a short sword, kodachi as well. Same thing, but kodachi, you have to do irimi. So another concept is in there. So you have to learn that as well. So you learn concepts and reasoning and all forms, and then you forms first, maybe reasoning together, but learn forms first and then start digging and think about why we should be doing that. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to you. A lot of things doesn't make sense to me either. That's because I'm not that level. That's because I've never done killing with a sword, which I don't want to. So just that's where your study comes in. You know, uh, through Kendo you learn about kizeme, right? Uh, Putting pressure by your internal energy. You can learn that. If you don't know how to do it, or if you don't know, if you never fought in armor on, you never know. So until you put armor on and you get to a certain level, a lot of things don't make sense to you maybe. That's why you have to keep doing Kendo until you understand what it really means. Okay, so I hope this helps you to learn kata and improve your Kendo as well. Thank you for listening. And also, I want to mention one thing. I'm selling this katana paper letter. What do you call it? Letter opener. Okay, at Amazon.com. So please buy these. I have a lot of left, so I have to pay a lot of storage fee. So otherwise, I'm gonna stop selling and then do something with it. But if you have, this is really neat. Katana letter opener is a good present. It's made in Japan, and if you can buy one or two, that will help me to generate more money to support this KendoGuide.com activities. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next podcast. I would like to send special thanks to patrons for their constant support through patreons.com/Kendo For Life.